Alright guys, let's get started. My name is Nicole D. Miller, and I am the author of When Love Wins. When Love Wins is a heartfelt tale, an urban Christian fiction story of two young women with a rift in their relationship. We have Ashley, the urban socialite, fashionista, artist. She's also a little bit snobby. Then we have her cousin Natalie, who is the reserved, faith-based social advocate writer. Both girls have an issue that stems from childhood, and it comes to a head when Natalie moves in with Ashley. Once her mother passes, she moves in with Ashley to receive support from her family in lieu of her grief, only to find she has a cold welcome from Ashley. But with all of the drama and hoopla that Ashley causes in Natalie's life, she still feels very strongly led spiritually to love Ashley anyway. Hence, the name of the book is When Love Wins. And if you guys have been following me for any length of time, you know that we kicked off the pre-sale for When Love Wins in November. There is also a cute little quiz that you can take to find out if you are an Ashley or if you are a Natalie. That's available on my link tree. Just go to my Instagram at HTOHB. There's also a free chapter download. Both of these items are easily accessible if you're on my email list. So if you're on my email list, then you will get special promos, discounts, offers, all the things. So make sure that you're subscribed. You can subscribe at NicoleDMiller.com. All right. We also I've just announced this week the actual book launch. So the book will be mailed if you've ordered through your pre-order. It'll be mailed early April, which is my birthday, guys. Just in case you didn't know, the big 4-0, it's happening. So if you're in the Cleveland area, I'm going to be celebrating at Sam's Silks off 21300 Libby Road. So check out, again, my link tree. The event is available on Eventbrite, and we're going to party, not like it's 1999 because that was a while ago, but we're gonna party like it's 2023. But we're definitely gonna do it big for my 40th birthday. All books will be signed, and you can pick up your book there if you're in the area. Alright, so let's get started. You guys know I do a Word of the Day Wednesdays every week, and I piggyback off of my latest blog. This particular week, I did something a little different. I actually only wrote a poem, and I haven't done this in a while. I think the last time I did this was when George Floyd was murdered, and I believe that was 2020. And the interesting thing about that is I wrote a poem, and I put it in my book, Stories for the Urban Soul, and it's called For George. And that particular poem inspired one of my short stories called Tyrone, about a young black male who has a friend at college who is murdered while jogging on a break. He gets murdered by a police officer. So this particular poem that I wrote this week was inspired by Tyree Nichols' murder. And if you're not familiar with the story, Tyree Nichols is a young black male, I believe in Memphis, who was murdered at the hands of 5 black police officers. And so it's interesting because when I first heard about the story, I didn't realize that the police officers are black, and I did my research, and I'm like, wow, I'm in shock. And one of the things I shared when I published this on social media is that poetry is such a great outlet for me when I'm really dealing with something hard and hurtful. And, you know, writing has been a great tool. If you guys have followed anything I've shared over the last 2 years almost, creative writing has been a great outlet, even for my own grief, for my own personal losses. And that's where I got Stories for the Urban Soul from, and wrote that out of that trauma. And then, of course, my first 2 books were out of healing from breakups. However, you know, the loss of this young man, and there have been so many, there's just been a slew, I just couldn't bear it. Like, I really was hurting, and I kept trying to think of a way to write about it on my blog because I wanted to release it, since writing is really therapeutic for me. However, also just to inform other people of what happened. But I couldn't come up with words other than in the form of poetry. And I was like pacing back and forth in my living room in prayer and just searching my spirit and my heart for how to release this. And so this poem came out. So I'm going to read the poem, and that is going to be what I'll be sharing for Word of the Day Wednesdays. The poem is available on my website, and it's called Brother's Keeper. This poem was written for Tyree Nichols, who was beaten to death at the hands of 5 black police officers. Brother's Keeper. The clashing of metal to skin pierces the sky. The tearing of flesh from bone rips the evening cool. The gnashing and gnarling of teeth accompany this horrific melody, but no one comes to his aid. The night air sprayed with blood is stung by the victim's cries. The screams for his mother swaddle his lungs as the tears stream from his eyes. But they only laugh in glee, you see. They haven't a soul or a heart for his plea. Their inner monster, clothed with blue, is hidden behind badges of authority. They think these badges will justify their unfathomable, innate cruelty. He is a man who is unarmed. He hasn't caused anyone any harm, and yet they target him for this demise, their own amusement at the cost of his life. The muddy chocolate hue of his skin matches theirs, but is now painted in red. As the brown turns black and blue, his pain is beyond comprehension. He is almost dead. What level of self-hatred can exist to cause one to batter one's own? The abuse of power is clearly seen. If hearts are not changed, it doesn't matter the skin tone. Is it the same murderous blood that ran through the veins of Cain? Did it course through theirs too, leading them into a belligerent rage? Instead of being their brother's keeper, they circled and caged him in, making him the brunt of their brutality, making him the mark of their sin. So thank you guys for listening. I just really had to get that out. It was one thing to hear about this young man being murdered senselessly and unjustifiably, and my heart grieves just for that. And then to learn that it was at the hands of 5 black armed police officers. I'm boggled. My mind is boggled. Because of the history of black people in this country, and this is Black History Month, because of the history of black people in this country, I am in shock and appalled to believe that we could squander the whole civil rights movement and how far we've come, what our ancestors and those who preceded us had to go through for us to have these opportunities to be in power, to be in leadership, and to not be honorable and use that to assist and protect and serve others. I don't have a grasp on it, and so this poem was my attempt to get some type of understanding. And for me, it ultimately came down to the line, if hearts are not changed, it does not matter the skin tone. Those who are in power and who are corrupt need a heart change and need a mind reset. And that can only happen supernaturally, from my understanding and my belief. So I'm interceding for Tyree's loved ones, specifically his mother. I can't even imagine. And just for all of those in similar positions, but especially for our government and those who are in leadership. I pray that we can one day see men and women with hearts of humility and servanthood and upright in character who will truly protect and serve us. And that's my intercession. So thank you guys for joining in with me in releasing that. I'm still pretty heavy, but I'm grateful that I was able to have that poem to release. I encourage you all to tap into your giftings in releasing what it is on your heart to release, and for us to continue acting diligently to put people in power who are for us, all of us. That being said, I do want to let you guys know about upcoming events. If you're on my email list, you know I had an interview with Vince Robinson, the great, and that interview was flawless. And he asked such amazing questions. Mr. Robinson is elite in his craft as a journalist, as a radio host, as an interviewer. I just so appreciate his thoroughness, his interest in my story, his continued support. And that will drop on the 2nd, I believe, and that's available at Open Doors with Vince Robinson on YouTube. And then I should have pulled up my little event thing. I have, I'll be speaking at Lit Cleveland and third CLE. I'm sorry, I'm messing up you guys' bookstores' names. But I think that's on the 21st, and they're honoring Toni Morrison, who I'm just falling in love with. I just finished The Bluest Eye, which was her very first novel, which she released at the age of 39, which is my age, and she's from Lorraine, so. And then we have, drumroll please, the Miami University Black Authors Webinar, and I believe that's the 23rd. All of this is off the top of my head, so please check if you're on my email list, check your emails. But all of those things are coming up in honor of Black History Month. We are still recording the audiobook for When Love Wins, and I just love my sound engineer and his wife, Ricardo and Lisa. They're sweet people, beautiful people. I'm grateful the Father brought them here. They're from Arizona, and so I'm so grateful the Father brought them here, if nothing else, for my little projects, okay? They feed me, we fellowship, it's just beautiful. So we are nearing the end of recording the audio version. So if you ordered the audiobook for When Love Wins, it's coming to you. Early April 2023, be on the lookout. And there's another thing I wanted to share, but I can't remember. I think the biggest thing is the book launch, so save the date. The book launch is going to be at Sam Silks, 21300 Libby Road, April 1st from 6 to 9. Actual book signings will be from 6 to 7. So don't be late, because if you want your book in a book signing, 6 to 7. Of course, I'll be there. We'll be having drinks and food and pictures and all that. But there will be a band, so I just want to make sure you guys hear me once I do the reading. So that's 6 to 7. And then I'm actually doing a virtual launch. So if you're not in Cleveland and you're like, oh, I really want to support, how can I support? If you're not in Cleveland, I am doing a virtual launch the day before, which is the 31st. And the launch is from 7:30 to 8:30. And it's via Zoom. And both of those, well, I don't know if that link is in my link tree. But again, it's on my Facebook for sure. And then if you are on Eventbrite, just type in Nicole D. Miller book launch. I think both of them will show up. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I so appreciate the support. And thank you for lending an ear to my poetry. I don't consider myself a poet. I consider myself a writer who can write poetry. I feel like the real poets are the ones who are like poetry books, poetry EPs. Like they're, I just put it in with my stories. And so fun fact, Natalie, the protagonist, one of the protagonists, leading ladies in this book, she's a writer and she does share some poetry. So When Love Wins, and I don't know if I've shared this either, When Love Wins pulls in some of the characters from Stories for the Urban Soul. So in Stories for the Urban Soul, the first two short stories are at a Black-owned cafe that's popping in New York called Devon's. And so Devon's Cafe pops back up in When Love Wins. So some of the characters in the first two stories in Stories for the Urban Soul pop back up in When Love Wins. So we get to meet more of Devon. We get to meet more of his fun server, Denise. She's actually Ashley's best friend. So I got to flesh out her character more. So that was all good. Alright, so you guys know where to find me, NicoleDMiller.com. My Instagram at HTOHB. Of course, I have the publishing house at ND Miller Publishing. I do remember the other thing I wanted to share. So we are working on the website for ND Miller Publishing. Yay, it's finally happening. So in the next few weeks, that thing will be out there. You'll be seeing it. It'll be visible. It'll blow you away. So there will be an official landing space for you to Schedule your coaching call. Schedule your consultation. Reach out to me about editing. All the things. All right. You guys have a good night, and I will see you next week for Word of the Day Wednesdays.